What's going on, everyone? Yesterday, the Portland Trailblazers traded for Jeremy Grant, and it was an absolute steal. What a great pickup for the Portland Trailblazers. Last year, they basically gutted their entire roster, gave away all their players for essentially nothing to clear up all this cap space, accumulate whatever assets they could, so they could go out and make a trade like for Jeremy Grant. And with that trade, one of the big things that many people noticed was they didn't have to trade the number 7 pick. And Portland, they want to contend now. They want to build a contending team around Damien Lillard immediately. They don't want to draft this guy to develop him and build him up. If they have to, absolutely they will. But it looks like, in all point signs show, that they want to trade the number 7 pick to go get another player of, a Jeremy Grant-esque type level. A guy that can come in, be solid immediately, be a guy that can be in a contributing factor, things like that, to really help Damian Lillard and start shaping up this roster. Now, they already have a great start with Jeremy Grant and Damian Lillard. You still have Simons, although I'm not too sure if you start him, just because, we saw the CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard experiment, and it didn't go very well. Yeah, they made the Western Conference Finals, but still, they were very underwhelming, and I feel like that's kind of the same pairing all over again. Same thing with a Zach LaVine. Although, if Zach LaVine wants to come, you don't say no. You take him, you figure it out. Hopefully Jeremy Grant is a guy that can kind of make up and supplement for that. Maybe you try to go get a defensive-minded center. But with the number 7 pick, given that the draft is tonight, the Portland Trailblazers are trying to take the number 7 pick and send it to the Toronto Raptors for OG Anunoby. Now, I don't necessarily think that the Raptors are going to trade OG. I think that the Raptors want to keep OG. We've talked about the trades potentially for OG on this channel on several occasions because it was reported that he isn't happy with his role in Toronto and he wants to go elsewhere. Whether that's true or not, and it's just kind of, reports. You never really know with these reports. But usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And that doesn't mean that the Raptors have to trade him or they will trade him or anything like that. The Raptors aren't a rebuilding team, so what value do they really see on the number 7 pick? Unless they have an idea of, if we take number 7 and we take these things and we trade that to go get another star like a Bradley Beal or something like that, then maybe you make this trade. Maybe you unload OG. You still got Siakam. You still have Scotty Barnes, so you do have guys that are essentially the same player as OG, so I don't think it would be a huge loss depending on what you get, right? What do you get to replace him? Do you use the number 7 pick and draft a guy? Maybe they really like a guy at number 7. They are a young enough team to where you can rebuild. And look at what Scotty Barnes did this year, right? As a rookie. I mean, he was huge for them. He was arguably their best player at times. So that is a huge bonus for them. So if this is even possible, even if Toronto really is thinking about this, I imagine that it's not just going to be for the number 7 pick. So maybe they're trading Simons number 7 and trying to get OG, something along those lines. If this is possible for the Portland Trailblazers, you do this immediately. You trade whatever you got to trade to go get an OG, because now you got a solid 3. I mean, you're better defensively than Portland's probably ever been since maybe arguably the Batum days. But even then, that team wasn't incredibly great defensively. But you have 2 guys. If you could get OG, you'd have OG and Grant, 2 guys that are big, solid wings, which are a hot commodity in this league, that can play, multiple spots, guard multiple positions, all of that. I mean, this would be absolutely huge for the Portland Trailblazers and a real step in the right direction. I don't necessarily think that they'll be able to get OG. I think realistically a better trade, and maybe this is something we'll talk about before the draft, is I think you're probably more looking at somebody like a Miles Turner, which I don't think would be a bad fit again at all. Say you have Grant, Turner, and Lillard. I mean, that's a great starting 3, and then you just round out the other players. I just don't know if the Raptors value the number 7 pick enough, because they're not really a rebuilding team. I mean, they're solid enough to be a playoff team. They're young enough to where they're going to grow and get better. I don't necessarily think that the Raptors are going to be a contender as constructed. And I do think eventually they're going to have to move off of one of these guys, and OG is very likely the odd man out, just because, are you going to max out Scotty Barnes, Siakam, and Anunoby? I don't think so. And I mean, I'm not saying they won't, but if they did, I don't think those 3 are enough to make you a contender. I don't. I think that those three would be great if you had like a Bradley Beal, a go-to scorer, a guy that can go get you 30 a night, night in and night out. Everyone else, not saying they can't develop into that, but as of right now, currently constructed, I think that at some point they're going to have to move off of one of these guys. And with the emergence of Scotty Barnes, I think OG is the odd man out. But if you're Portland, you go do this because you have Lillard, you get two wings that help out defensively. Maybe you go re-sign Nurkic, whatever. Maybe you go and try to make a trade or try to sign somebody. And maybe you even do get LaVine with that. Now you have these guys. The possibilities for Portland would essentially be endless if they're able to do this, and you have a real solid team. I don't know if Portland's a contender, but they're a much better team than they have been of recent years with just these three. Because again, like you have three guys that can consistently score night in and night out. You have three guys that can consistently defend the best player on the other team night in and night out. It's just their switchability, just everything would be so much better for Portland if you were able to go get an OG if that's possible. Again, I don't know if they would do this. I don't see this happening. I think very likely that number 7 pick goes to a team that has assets that wants to rebuild. Like a Portland for trade with Indiana Pacers. You go get a Miles Turner. They want to unload him. They're willing to trade him. They're a rebuilding team. They'll take a number 7 pick, and maybe they will take Simons. Something like that. And now you got Turner, you got Grant, and you got Lillard. Maybe you can go sign LaVine, where you're thinking like, okay, yeah, it's kind of the McCollum-Lillard duo all over again, but we have a defensive big guy down low who can spread the floor and block shots, and we have a big body wing that can play the 3 or the 4 and defend and block shots and switch on multiple guys, so they can make up for the lack of defense that Lillard and LaVine have. I could see something along those lines. I just think that, again, if you can get OG in a Blazers jersey, you do that immediately. You do what you have to do, and then you figure out the rest. You round out your roster around these three. My only thing, though, is that, like, OG, if the rumors are true, right? Let's say the rumors are true and OG isn't happy with his role. If he goes to Portland, his role is kind of the same thing that it was on the Raptors. Like he's not going to be the number 2, number 1 guy, anything like that. He's likely the at best maybe the number 2, but Grant wants to be the number 2, right? Grant believes he's a number 1, number 2 guy on a contending team. So now you have OG and Grant who both believe they are the same type of player, and you might have that struggle. You might feel where maybe OG steps up and he is that number 2 guy. But now you got Grant who feels spited, and he's a free agent. He could just leave you, So now you lose him, and you didn't really give up anything for him, so maybe that's not the biggest loss in the world, but still, you gave up some future picks and stuff to go get this guy that you hope to re-sign for the long haul. But same thing. If, let's say, Grant turns out to be the number 2 guy, and he's the better guy, and now OG's like, dude, I've already played third fiddle on the Toronto Raptors. I don't need to play third fiddle here on Portland, and now you're in trouble there. I just think that, I could see conflicts, I could see issues, but who knows? I mean, winning solves everything, right? So, like, if they really are, like, let's say they get these 3 guys, they go get, like, a LaVine or something, and they round out their roster, right? They build, like, a legit team, and they're, number 3, number 4 in the West, and they're looking like they're a real maybe contender. I still don't think that they would be a real contender, but like let's say they're looking like, hey, maybe they're a contender. Then yeah, I think winning solves everything. I think that they'll be fine and they'll be able to work it out, hash it out. But I just think it's a problem Portland's got to take, right? Like if the rumors are true and he is available and he is sort of disgruntled and you can package the number 7 pick and whatever you got to go get him, you do it and you figure it out once you get there. Because, like I said, Grant, Lillard, OG, that is a great trio to start for your future. Assuming Lillard comes back and plays like the Lillard of old last year, he seemed to really struggle. But granted, in his defense, he was injured, took the year off, got his body right, got the surgery, all of that stuff. So I imagine that he's gonna be back to being the Damien Lillard we know and love. I'm not a Portland fan by any means, but I love Damien Lillard, so I'd love to see him have some success. I'd love to see him, be in a position to where he has like a real solid team, because Portland didn't do the best of job putting the building the greatest teams around him, and they're lucky that he is as loyal as he has been, because he could have at any point said, hey, I'm out of here. And I think the entire world would have understood. I mean, people, even Portland fans were screaming for Damian Lillard, like, dude, just go somewhere else. Like, clearly we're not we're not taking this serious. But last year, Portland really made the steps. They did. They showed. They said, which I imagine Lillard was like, look, you got one more chance here. If you don't figure it out, I'm going elsewhere. I'm not getting any younger. I'm on the wrong side of 30. I'm having major injuries. Like, now's my opportunity. And so Portland's actively trying to do that. So anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you think, like, yeah, if Portland can do this, you do this immediately? Whatever you got to do to go get OG, you go get OG. You got OG, Grant, and Lillard. That's a great team. That's a great start. And then you build the rest of the roster around him? Or do you think, like, no, like, Toronto would never do that. It makes no sense for Toronto. Do you think, like, yeah, maybe you do go trade. Maybe you don't get OG, but maybe you go trade and go get, like, a Miles Turner or something like that. Like I said, maybe I'll make a video diving into that specifically and post it a little later today. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this rumored trade package that Portland's trying to put together to go get OG. I do think it's interesting, and it's pretty incredible that they didn't have to trade the number 7 pick to go get Jeremy Grant. I understand from a Detroit Pistons side, it was just a salary thing. It was to just unload and clear up essentially $50 million. They can clear up to like $57 million in cap space, anywhere from 46 to 57 million. So I do understand it from the Detroit side, but just shocked that they didn't have to give up the number 7 pick. But again, love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.